morning, everyone. We're now in the town of Meknes. Today, there are only 7 Jews living in Meknes, but in the 17th century, there were thousands and thousands of Jewish families that came from Spain to flee the Spanish Inquisition. And some of the greatest rabbis and teachers lived in this town and are now buried in this cemetery, including Rabbi Abu Chatzera. On the way here, we sang a song that many Sephardic Jews and even Ashkenazic Jews know. Asher Oshira Likvod HaTorah. I'll sing a song to the honor of the Torah, which is sang in many synagogues in honor of the Torah. This was a song that was composed here in Meknes by a great rabbi, Rabbi Rafael Baruch Toledano, and it lives on till this very day. This week's Torah portion is Korach, but it begins with the word Vayikach, and he took. What did Korach take? He took a group of individuals and led a rebellion against Moshe Rabbeinu. But our rabbis explain that the word Vayikach explains the sin and the mistake of Korach. You see, there's leadership that is meant to be a service to the people, as opposed to the leadership of Korach, which was meant to take for himself power and honor. And therefore, because he was a taker rather than a giver, therefore his attempted leadership failed on its face, as opposed to the leadership of Moses, who was called a servant of God, because he devoted his life to giving and devoting himself to the Jewish people. And those who give of themselves, they live on through their goodness and their kindness and their generosity. As a matter of fact, the word ahava, which means love, the root of the word is hav, which means to give. When the Torah says a man should leave the Torah says he should cling to his wife and become one flesh. And the question is, what does it mean to leave his mother and father? It doesn't mean physically. What it means is to leave the mentality of being a receiver, because a child is always receiving from the parents. Now you must become a giver to your spouse, and then to your children and to your family. Indeed, this town, Meknes, was the first town, the first city that a Chabad emissary of the Rebbe came to. In 1950, when the Rebbe took over the leadership of his father-in-law, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, the first emissary he sent was Rabbi Michal Lipska to Meknes, Morocco. And today there are 5,000 emissaries around the world, but this was the first town that ever had an emissary of the Rebbe. And indeed, this Thursday is the yahrzeit of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the 29th yahrzeit. And just like Moshe's leadership through the Torah, the Rebbe's leadership lives on all over the world through his students, through his emissaries, because what we take from this world dies with us, but what we give to the world lives on forever. It's a story told about Rabbi Michal Lipska, the first emissary to Morocco, that after a couple of years he raised some money to come back to New York to visit his family and to visit the Rebbe. And when he came to visit the Rebbe, he decided that since he can't bring his family to New York, he would hire a photographer to take a picture of his family, of his wife and children, to show the Rebbe his children that were born in Morocco. And he brought this picture to New York, and he had an audience with the Rebbe where he discussed life in Morocco of the Jewish community. And then he showed the Rebbe the picture of his family members and his children that were born in Morocco. The Rebbe asked him if he could keep the picture. He was taken aback because he expected to show this picture to family and friends, but if the Rebbe asked, of course he said yes. A few days later, he went to visit the Rebbe's mother, Hannah Schneerson, who lived in Crown Heights, to speak to her about his work in Morocco. And when he came into the Rebbe's mother's house, Hannah Schneerson, he saw his photograph that he gave the Rebbe of his family framed. He gave it to Rebbe unframed. The Rebbe had framed it and was sitting on the fireplace on the mantle of his mother's apartment, the Rebbe's mother's apartment. And he was surprised to see it, and he said, what is this? How did you get this? And she said, my son came home one day and gave me this as a present, this framed picture of your family. And he said, you know how you always ask, where are my grandchildren? Well, these are your grandchildren. The Rebbe has children and grandchildren all over the world, because the good deeds that we do, as opposed to what Korah tried to do, which is take for himself, what we give to others lives on for all of eternity. While this may be a cemetery where great rabbis, teachers, and Jews are buried, their Torah and their music, their songs, like Ashora Shira, are sung and celebrated each and every day by Jews around the world. Have a wonderful day.